talk to me a little bit about the crack. And I mean, you mentioned, Bruno, cocoa prices were up 400%. Basically, you knew you would have to increase prices, and you, at the same time, the way you've been building the brand is really not, from what I gather, not commercially driven. I mean, everything needs to achieve commercial results, but it's you're discounting and promo pricing is definitely not the way that you've been leading with building the brand. So how did you unlock this insight with the crack?
So it's actually like super interesting, because when you look at Nothing Cracks Like Magnum, you start with a business problem, right? A business context, which is about the increase of cocoa prices, which inevitably, you know, is a challenge that the whole sector need to deal with it. And there's a lot of ways on how to respond on that. But I think what is always at the front and center of Magnum is making sure that we actually understand our consumer and what drives value for our consumers. And when we started about the insight generation together as part of the strategic process, it was about social listening that we took for more than, I think, 5 years.
Yeah, it was a really long social listening.
To really understand what are consumers actually saying about our product and what do they consider as a sign of superiority, as a sign of value.
Whoops.
Love that.
Nothing falls like an iPad.
Nothing falls like an iPad, exactly. And I think that part where you say, like, when we did that, it was so eye-opening to us, because we were explicit about our crack, because it has been part of our distinctive brand asset. But to actually translate into that to value for consumers is something where our eyes opened up, actually, you know, together as a strategic team on the agency side as well as on the client side, of like, this is so powerful. And if we use that as an insight to translate it into going into the creative process, what can it do for us, you know? And then in the end, you know, like, it truly turned into something, a sonic DBA, so a sonic distinctive brand asset, while it was always already a visual distinctive brand asset. So now it also became all about the sound. And that sound resonated so well that actually we've created a campaign that had a community inside. And that's something that, from a Magnum perspective, connecting and being obsessed with our consumers is so important. And you can always ask consumers, what do you like, or what do you think about this? But consumers not always know that. But if they're already talking about this for 5 years on socials,
you're just tapping
everywhere,
in.
It's like everybody was talking about that magical moment. It's not a moment, of course it's part of our product, but it's not a moment that we've always staged that much, and neither do we want to. But it became front and center because consumers loved it so much.
Yeah, so
I mean, I can tell from experience, like, it's the thought of the crack that lifts me up, like, gets me wanting to buy it. Like this, I'm a tub fan, so just I'll give you another idea. It's this squeeze with a crack. It's this sensorial thing that you would never imagine being able to do with a product.
I guess what we're saying, like, I guess the strategy behind is a lot more complex than it seems when you go into the thinking, because obviously the crack is part of the experience, and we always knew that the crack is one thing that we need to be consistent across all of the formats we have. So the experience of having the cracking chocolate needed to be present in every format. That's why, you know, the tub has the crack from the outside. So the crack has always been part of the product experience. But as Toby was saying, it was just a sign of the experience itself, the same way as the stick is how you hold it, or, you know, the creamy textures. All of these things are also characteristics of the product. I guess the shift was when we saw consumers saying that the crack was louder, or it wasn't as, or they tried what we saw, that it was the insight from the first campaign, then the stick to the original, was that, oh, Magnum-like ice creams, they don't crack as loud or as pleasurable as Magnum ones. Or we also saw some people, you know, talking about the quality of the chocolate, and they can tell the chocolate is high quality because of the sound of the crack. So now we're starting to understand that, okay, the crack is actually a lot bigger than it seems. It's not just a characteristic of the product. It's actually saying something. And if you think really, really rational about the crack and how the crack exists, it comes from the thickness of the chocolate. It's a characteristic of the product that we could say that we have thicker chocolate, that's why it cracks. But
then it would kill the magic.
You kill the magic.
I mean, I find it so brilliant that it's not just the fact that, first of all, you have this distinctive brand asset that it's a sound, but you also, maybe by coincidence, it's just matching the whole trend for ASMR videos and sound, like all the TikTok videos with the sound, and it's just such a great moment for a brand to be tapping into. And I read somewhere that you recorded how different ice creams crack.
Yeah,
Like so that the sound is actually original. This is.
Yeah, we went out.
This is next level.
Yeah, and I guess also when we unlock something that is so creative, has such a big creative potential, it also inspires our media agents to see how can this crack really evolve from communication, really stand out. Then you start bringing up some new media formats, synchronization with radio. So that's where like the insight, it goes way beyond the actual execution. It inspired the entire ecosystem of the campaign.
Yeah, because it's really actually some next level sound engineering in a way, right? Because it's already there, it's part of the product. It's, by the way, a really strong element that we don't localize anywhere, because the crack is a common denominator wherever you are in the world. Yeah. And I think that also shows, again, that you can build this consistency. And like Bruno is saying, I think when it comes to even like media placement, the creative is brilliant, but where you place it and how you show it in front of consumers is as important, right? Because we've prioritized sound on media when we put it in front of consumers. And that shows, like we did in cinema, very impactful. You see the crack and it goes on the screen, and it's a truly multi-sensorial experience, right? And I already feel it in my mouth, like, and people like, and then again, like you do it in radio, right? Where the focus is all on sound, and like you said, with regards to certain digital out-of-home new media placements where you pass by and you hear your media is actually synchronized with the media buying. So you hear a crack and you look around you and it's like, was that a crack? Like there's this type of media placement that's also so important. So from the start to the execution, sound engineering has been so important.